What's up you guys, Charles here and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to go over what is an ISA and how does it work. Now first and foremost, an ISA stands for Individual Savings Account. Now essentially what it is as it says on the tin, it's a savings account, except it's a special type of savings account because inside it you'd never pay tax. Now of course there is a catch to this, you can't just invest all your money into the savings account where you don't pay tax on. It has to be up to £20,000 a year, and this is a tax year, so from the 6th of April to the 5th of April. Now this 20,000 is every year. You can't invest, for example, 15,000 into your savings account one year and then carry the extra 5,000 left over into the next year. It's either take it or leave it. Now in this video we're going to go over the 4 types of ISAs there are. But before we jump into those, you have to understand that £20,000 is over all of these ISAs, as in you can't invest 20,000 in each one. The total you invest in all of these has to be equivalent to £20,000 and it has to be in one tax year. Now normally, depending on the provider you use, you are able to transfer between different types of ISAs without any extra cost. Now we'll start off with the most simple and most basic one. Now this is the cash ISA. A cash ISA is essentially just a savings account like you put in the bank, but the interest you make on it is not taxed, because in the UK if you make over £1,000 on interest, you have to pay tax on it. When you have it in this cash ISA, however, you don't get taxed on it. Now in the cash ISA you can invest everything up to 20 grand into it. Put it simply, it's just a high interest savings account that you don't pay tax on. Now for the second one, the Stocks&Shares ISA. This one's slightly more complicated but still pretty simple. Essentially, you put money into it and you can invest through platforms that offer this Stocks&Shares ISA, and you can invest in, well, stocks and shares. These include funds, bonds and stocks. Now what is useful about this Stocks&Shares ISA? What's useful is the fact that in the UK, when you invest outside of this ISA wrapper in stocks, you get taxed over if you make an increase in value of a stock over certain amounts. For example, if you buy something at £1 and it increases to £10, and if that £9 increase is over what you're allowed to have an increase on without being taxed, you get taxed on it. However, if it's in the Stocks&Shares ISA, you don't get taxed on that capital gain, which means that you get to keep more money and it's usually invested towards your retirement. Now another benefit is when you're investing in stocks and shares, some of them pay dividends. Now if you are invested outside of this ISA, you get dividend taxed above a certain amount. And guess what? Within the ISA you don't, which means that you're able to grow your money faster and gain more money. Now a slightly more complex thing to understand is there is a thing called income tax, which you probably know about, is you get taxed on 30% of your income. However, if you get an income from the interest of a corporate bond and your corporate bond has been bought within a Stocks&Shares ISA, you don't pay income tax on it, so that's another great benefit. Now if you're new to this channel, you should normally be investing for over 5 years in any sort of investing, because otherwise you should keep it in cash or in low risk and very liquid assets such as short-term bonds. Now when opening a Stocks&Shares account, you need to first find your provider. I personally recommend Vanguard because they're one of the lowest cost ones, and then you need to choose a fund. Now I also recommend Vanguard's ones because Vanguard's index funds, you should always choose index funds, not mutual funds. If you don't understand that, I've got a video on index funds and how they work, but you should invest in the lower cost funds, and Vanguard has one of the lowest cost ones. Now once you're in the Stocks&Shares ISA, the great thing is that if you want to sell your shares, you can directly move back to cash. Now that once you've invested your 20 grand a year, it doesn't matter how much you have in, you can still transfer however amount between ISAs. Now when investing in these Stocks&Shares ISA, I recommend investing drip by drip over time, which means that as you get your salary, you should invest monthly into your Stocks&Shares ISA and into your portfolio of investments. Now with the stock market and dollar cost averaging, this is called, you can invest very expensively one month, but slightly cheaper another month, and then very cheaply another month. And over time, that even out as an average cost. Now another thing you need to know about these are fees. Fees are very important. Now as Warren Buffett says, rule number 1 is to not lose money. Rule number 2 is to remember rule number 1. So make those fees as low as possible. Now I'll go over the different types of fees there are. First fee is the platform charge. So when you're investing in an ISA, a Stocks&Shares ISA, platform, for example, Vanguard will charge you to use their platform to invest into the stock market or into bonds or whatever you want to invest in. There are also fund charges. So when you're investing into a fund, when you invest through Vanguard, you can only choose Vanguard funds. But when you're investing into a fund, you have to pay a certain expense for investing into that fund. Now, the reason I invest in index funds personally, and why I think you should too, is that index funds have a very low percentage of charges, saving you lots of money over time. Now, you also have charges when you buy or sell a fund. Now, these can usually range between £5 and £8, it depends, but you want to look at your platform and how much they cost, if it's a percentage or an upfront fee, and try to get the lowest one. Now, another thing, and the final thing to look out for, is a transfer out fee. Some platforms don't charge this at all, but some do. For example, if you want to change your ISA provider from Vanguard to AJ Bell, for example, and you want to transfer that, sometimes Vanguard might charge you a certain amount to transfer. Now, the reason I've been rambling on about fees is they're very important. You need to watch out for them, because those small percentages over time compound. If you haven't seen my video on compound interest, go watch it. They compound over time, and that can cost you a lot. Now, for the third one, this is an innovative finance ISA, or for short, an IFISA. Now, these are solely for peer-to-peer lending. So you go use platforms like for the Stocks and Shares ISA to invest in peer-to-peer lending. So essentially, it's just you giving a loan to someone else, and for a certain amount of time, and then they will pay back. Now, that could be a person, that could also be a company. Now, the thing you need to remember is peer-to-peer lending and this ISA is not assured under the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, which means that if your provider goes broke or can't pay you back, you will lose all your money, whilst the Stocks and Shares and Cash ISA are assured under this scheme. Now, once again, like with the Stocks and Shares ISA and the Cash ISA, the IF ISA, you can invest all of your 20k into just that. Now for the fourth one. This one is one of the most complicated ones, but it's also quite an interesting one. It's called the Lifetime ISA, or LISA for short. Now, first you need to know the maximum you can invest in this type of ISA per year is £4,000. Now, once you put your money into a LISA, you'll get a 25% from the government on top of what you put in. So, for example, if you put the max in, which is £4,000, you'll get £5,000 in actual value in your account. And another great aspect of the LISA is you can invest in stocks and shares within the LISA. So you could essentially have a Stocks and Shares ISA within the LISA, where you can have extra money, that extra 25% they put in. And it goes without saying that all your capital gains and stuff are tax-free, as long as they're kept within the ISA. Now, like with anything the government sets up, there are of course catches. The first one is you have to be between 18 and 39 to invest in the LISA. Now, the second most important one is that currently when you withdraw money from a LISA, you pay 20% charge. Now, you might be thinking, well, if I put money in and they give me 25%, but then I take money out and they give me 20%, well, surely I'm making 5% here. But the thing you have to realize is that a 20% loss is greater in terms of money value than a 25% gain. For example, when you put £4,000 in, the government gives you an extra grand, so you have £5,000, then you withdraw it and take 20% out of that, you're back to £4,000 of what you put in. Now, in April 2021, they're changing that and they're increasing the penalty charge to 25%, which means that you're technically losing a 6% of your money if you take it out. The other thing with the LISA is you can only contribute until you're 50 years old. And the other thing also is when you contribute over your lifetime, the maximum bonus, so the 25% they give you, the maximum they'll give you is 33 grand over your lifetime. So if you're thinking of putting your money into a LISA, you need to remember that it will cost you a lot to take, well, not a lot, but it'll cost you 6% to take out, which is still a fair amount if you have a lot of savings. But you can take it out on two conditions. The first is if you turn 60, so it's essentially for a retirement, but if you're investing for retirement, you might want to look at pensions. I'll make a video on pensions later, and they might be more useful for you if you're investing solely for retirement. The second way you can take it out is if you're buying a UK property and it's your first one ever. This means that if you've bought a property anywhere else in the world, you won't be eligible to take the money out for this. Now, this property has to be a UK residential property and it has to cost less than £450,000. On top of this, you have to be taking out a mortgage, so you can't just use it and buy it outright with cash. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is for you to smash that like button. I'd really appreciate it if you did that. It really helps me and the channel reach more people thanks to the YouTube algorithm. And if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments, or want to make any comments, of course, comment. And subscribe for more on investing money, saving money, and just money in general. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.